Well, you know, President Trump, in his pre-Super Bowl interview tonight that just played, making an announcement about investigating voter fraud. He also defended his unproven claims about the role of undocumented immigrants. Take a listen to a bit of it.
If you say, for example, that there are 3 million illegal aliens who voted, and then you don't have the data to back it up, some people are going to say that's irresponsible for a president to say that. Is there any validity to that?
Many people have come out and said I'm right. You know that.
I know, but you got to have data to back that up.
Let me just tell you, and it doesn't have to do with the vote, although that's the end result. It has to do with the registration. And when you look at the registration and you see dead people that have voted, when you see people that are registered in 2 states that voted in 2 states, when you see other things, when you see illegals, people that are not citizens and they're on the registration rolls. Look, Bill, we can be babies, but you take a look at the registration. You have illegals, you have dead people, you have this. It's really a bad situation. It's really bad. And
so you think you're going to be proven correct in that statement?
Well, I think I already have. A lot of people have come out and said that I am correct.
Yeah, but the data has to show that 3 million illegals voted.
Forget that. Forget all of that. Just take a look at the registration, and we're going to do it. And I'm going to set up a commission to be headed by Vice President Mike Pence, and we're going to look at it very, very carefully.
Joining us now in New York, columnist and Republican strategist Noel Nekpour, also Alexi McCammond, associate news editor at Bustle, and in Washington, Jonathan Allen, a columnist at Roll Call. Good Super Bowl Sunday to all 3 of you. Alexi, he's standing by a campaign point, and he's not backing down on it. We don't have data that supports any of the comments that he made before, nor now, yet he continues. Why is he doing this? Because if he doesn't have the data, as has been said, and as you saw Bill O'Reilly saying, well, where's the data behind this?
Right. I said this before the election, I'll say it now. I think Donald Trump was someone who's more interested in winning the election than actually being president. And I think that's something
But he's won!
Exactly, but I think he's unwilling to sort of give that up because that's what made him feel sort of macho and in control and in power, is that he won the election. I think it's interesting that he's not considering 25% of people believe these claims, according to a report from Politico just 5 days ago. And it's dangerous, right, to democracy and to spreading factual information to people. But I think he's unwilling to give it up because even though he knows he doesn't have the facts, he doesn't want to be proven wrong. So he's going to keep pushing this false narrative in the hopes that people keep believing it, right? And that's what 25% of people already do.
And one of the individuals here, Noel, that might be saying in his ear the election is over or we don't have the data is Mike Pence, right, the vice president. And President Trump has said he's putting Mike Pence on this to handle it. Is he the water softener in this situation, the one that will be handling everything up front to make everything okay?
You know what? He's going to assume the same role that he did in the campaign. Because if you'll look back in the campaign and you'll see that every time Trump said something or maybe disagreed or said something in left field, Mike Pence was kind of the cleanup person right behind it. And Mike Pence is someone that Republicans, especially establishment, feel very comfortable with. So it's almost like Trump can say and do whatever, but there's Mike Pence that's there to make sure that things are going to go smooth.
So he's on the case of this, which is, again, the claim of 3 to 5 million undocumented immigrants who have somehow voted, the difference by which he lost to Hillary Clinton in the total popular vote. But Jonathan, there's also the new comments that have come out from President Trump going up against the judge in Washington state, calling him a so-called judge, calling his decisions ridiculous. And by the way, this is new video of President Trump and the First Lady sitting down like most Americans tonight and enjoying the Super Bowl. So Jonathan, can the vice president, though, soften that? Because that is a clear shot at one of the branches of government, what most presidents have not done before, especially in the middle of a nominee going forward for the Supreme Court.
No, I don't think the vice president can clean it up. Mike Pence is obviously much better spoken than Donald Trump is and has a much better feel for how to say things in politic ways. But Donald Trump is the president of the United States. You know, at the risk of sounding a little bit like a coastal elite, Montesquieu would be rolling over in his grave at this separation of powers issue. You know, the president of the United States is trying to undermine the judiciary of the United States, and really, I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like this. I think, upsetting to those who believe that that separation of powers is important to the functioning of our democratic republic. And I think that includes not just Democrats, but a lot of Republicans.
And let's stay on the topic here of the immigration ban and immigration. As we look at this, Alexi, the president was also asked about the push by Democrats in California to make the entire state a sanctuary state. He's come out to say, I do not support sanctuary cities, will pull funding. You've heard that too. But first, let's get to what was said in this interview, and then we'll get a reaction.
Well, I think it's ridiculous, sanctuary cities. As you know, I'm very much opposed to sanctuary cities. They breed crime. There's a lot of problems. If we have to, we'll defund. We give tremendous amounts of money to California.
So you're going to defund.
California, in many ways, is out of control, as you know. Obviously, the voters agree. Otherwise, they wouldn't have voted for me.
So defunding is your weapon of choice.
Well, it's a weapon. I don't want to defund a state or a city. I don't want to defund anybody. I want to give them the money they need to properly operate as a city or a state. If they're going to have sanctuary cities, we may have to do that. Certainly, that would be a weapon.
Well, when you took a look at supporters in the state of California, this is not good by the numbers here if you look at them. Clinton got 61% of the vote. He got some 32%. He was way, way, way behind. Also removing, if you will, funding from California. California might say, we're the 6th or 7th largest economy in the world. You need us more than we need you.
Right. I think it's absolutely a bad strategy, and I think he's just trying to exert his power in any way he can and try to intimidate people, and that's something he built his campaign on, is intimidating people, and it's something he'll continue to do. I don't think he'll actually end up stripping funding from these places. Chicago, I'm from Chicago, Mayor Emanuel said we will not, succumb to Donald Trump's orders. We will remain a sanctuary city too, and I think that people will continue to push back against him, and he's just trying to scare them, but I don't think ultimately he will strip funding from these places.
As you know, Noel, there are some issues that President Trump will talk about, but really is not necessarily close to his heart, and then there are those issues that are very close to his heart. Where does this sit?
Well, get used to this type of governing. This is who Donald Trump is. This is who, was elected. This style is carrying over in the White House. This is what he's going to do. This is his style. A lot of people think that he's going from the bully pulpit. This is how he is getting things done. The Republican base, the Republican people that voted him in, they are cheering him on. Of course, you know that, his election has brought the movement of, riots. There are a lot of people from the left, or the majority of the left, do not like President Trump. Anything he is going to do is going to be under a microscope, and it's going to be resisted. His style is not, it is far from Obama. It is far from it. It's not smooth.
Deliberate. It's not deliberate.
No. And get used to this.
I made you laugh there, didn't I, Noel? Okay.
You got me.
Yeah,
Richard.
I got you there. So if it's not deliberate, and I think many would agree with that, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, then his style might be said to be, I leave everything as a possibility. Jonathan, it was even said by Sean Spicer, this is the way that this president governs. He will absolutely entertain all options. This is an example of what we're looking at in dealing with Iran, right? And his movements on that, with that country, with what he'd like to do in terms of sanctions. Will this style work? Will we get used to it, though, over time? Because if he leaves everything on the table, where he's not absolutely focused and deliberate, that, for him, may not work.
Well, I think it's counterproductive in a lot of ways, and one way in particular that you've seen with this first executive order, what was referred to as the Muslim ban until he decided to make it country-specific and still refers to it as a ban, and also the defunding potentially of sanctuary cities or even the University of California. Once he starts talking about that and framing what he's trying to do in those ways, he runs into the possibility that judges will decide that he is doing what he said he was going to do, and then that's how he's written things. There's a really careful line you got to walk with coercion when you talk about pulling federal funds. The Supreme Court has talked about that just in the last few years, and then again with the Muslim ban, or him having spoken about banning Muslims from coming to the country, it is a lot harder for him to go into court and argue that that is not actually what is driving his policy.
Talking about leaving everything on the table is an option here, though, Jonathan. It may not work when you talk about the bureaucracy there in the Beltway, right? Because we've been getting a lot of leaks, and this is all of those underneath in this federal bureaucracy, all those that may not support what he's doing, and they can do something about it because they're plugged into the processes. The question to you is, will this bureaucracy adjust to him, or will he have to adjust to them to get something done?
I think civil servants, sort of throughout the government have been trying to make the decision about whether they are better off leaving this government and not being a part of it, for those who don't like Donald Trump, or staying in it and trying to slow his policies down. It is very difficult to get things done in the federal government from the executive side, and it's certainly very hard to get it done on the legislative side. This is a president who is making it more and more difficult for people to try to move his policies through, in part because they're not clearly articulated or well thought out before they are articulated. And we're seeing that with Republicans on Capitol Hill today with some of the responses to what the president has been saying about Russia. We haven't heard as much about the judges, but certainly about Russia today. Senator Mitch McConnell running as far away as he possibly could in an interview. Ben Sass, senator from Nebraska, running away from the president. This is going to continue to be a problem for him, and if he wants to get things done, he is going to have some allies.
And they are seeing it because protesters are showing up at those particular, many of the leaders on the right as Donald Trump moves forward. So it's not just protesting over this president and his policies. Jonathan, thank you so much. Alexi as well. Noel, sorry to make you laugh there earlier on. Okay, protests continue in response to President Trump.